Hey everybody, this is Nate with Knotz Theory. Today we're going to go over tie-dyeing. So we're going to do hot water irrigation today. So this process takes less than 1 hour from start to washing machine. So for tying, dyeing, setting the dye, all of it, less than 1 hour. Before we go over the tying, I'm going to go over all the products that I use. The basic process for tie-dye, you need to use soda ash. Always use soda ash. You can order soda ash from the dye companies. Most of them sell them online, or you can go to the store and get this Arm & Hammer washing soda. It's the same thing as soda ash. Baking soda can also be turned into soda ash by cooking in the oven. pH up in the pool aisle in some stores, or if you go to a pool cleaning store, pH up is the same thing as well. Just make sure there's no other ingredients in it. It just needs to be soda ash. So the only difference between all the soda ashes is basically the size of the granule inside. So some of them are more fine, some of them are bigger, but by the time you get through using it, it's all going to dissolve anyway, so it doesn't really matter what size you use. So I prefer this. It's easy, it's at the store. So to tie, you can use rubber bands, plain old rubber bands, sinew, which is actually my favorite. Sinew works really well for some of the more intricate designs that you're trying to get white lines and stuff drawn in, or if you're trying to do geodes or anything like that. Today we're going to be doing a spiral. So with the spiral you can use painter's tape. Painter's tape actually works well. It's quick, it's cheap, it's just easy to use. So we're going to use that for this. And then to tie the spiral, I just got a couple popsicle sticks with rubber bands that I'm going to pinch it with and twist. And then to help with the pleats, just another popsicle stick. So for hot water irrigation, so right now I'm just using a candy thermometer. It does help a lot to have a thermometer so that you actually know your temperature of the water that you're using. Right around 140 degrees is ideal to get the dye to set instantly. When you do it at 140, you don't have to have any batch time. But if you go over 140, you run the risk of burning out some of the colors, which is actually pretty easy to do. And if you don't have it quite up hot enough, some of your colors won't set. If you're worried about it not being hot, then you can actually let it sit longer, and the dye will set if you let it sit. There's just kind of this balance between time and temperature that's used. So if you raise the temperature up to a certain point, you can take away all that time, and that's what the hot water irrigation is for. So the dyes that I'm going to be using, I typically just use Grateful dyes. There are many other companies you can use, like Dharma, Custom Colors. Anything that's a Proshon MX dye will work. There are some kits in the store. I don't really like the kits in the store. I prefer going through the manufacturers because they have more dye for less price, and you get more options as well. You can go with just your basic colors if you want. I got fuchsia, turquoise, and lemon yellow here. They're kind of my primary colors. Sometimes I'll just mix with those. I do have other colors that I use as well. When doing hot water irrigation, it works best if you pre-mix your soda ash and your dye. So 1 part dye to 3 parts soda ash works really well. You can, not everybody likes that. Some likes 1 part dye to 4 parts soda ash. So you can kind of go in between and just kind of test, see what works best for you. So everything that I have in here is already mixed with soda ash. So I kind of label everything, what it is. Not all of these actually work well. There's a few colors that I've found do not work well with hot water irrigation. One of them being the seashell blue For some reason, it just, when the water hits it, it rolls off. It doesn't ever stick. Every time I wash it, the color's not even there. So there are some colors that don't work. There are some colors that work better than others. So you'll just have to kind of test, see what colors you like, or if you go with the colors that I use, they typically seem to work pretty well. So I will get started on that. Put this away. My sprayer that I use too. So I use this DeWalt 2-gallon sprayer. It might be a little much for everybody, but for me, so I got this at Home Depot. I believe it was around $35. And it has this brass tip on here. So this brass tip helps really well with the high heat. Not all sprayers can handle the heat used for hot water irrigation. So you'll want something that can handle the heat. The first one that I got, so I had started with this garden sprayer here, and this worked really well, but it couldn't quite handle the heat. There's a plastic piece that's in here that melted, and eventually this thing stopped working for me. But this was quite a bit cheaper, so if you don't want to spend the 35 or maybe 40, however much that is now, I got that a little while back, so I don't know if the price is the same. But you can go for one of these. I think I might have found this one for close to $10 or so on Amazon if you want to check for just some garden sprayers. But if you do, make sure it can handle heat, because it will stop working. You'll have to buy a new one if it doesn't. You don't want to do that. So just get one that handles heat to get rid of that. And 4.5 quart boiling pot so that I can boil some water in. Be using this later. Typically what I'll do is fill it, get it to boiling, put it into here, and then I can just get water from the faucet and mix it. And by the time those two are mixed, it's about the temperature I want. So we'll go over that once I start doing the water. First here, so we're going to start with a shirt. Gilded heavy cotton, just plain old t-shirt. So when doing these, a lot of times you want to turn the shirt inside out. You don't have to, but by turning it inside out, what happens is you get less chance of speckling, because we're putting powdered dye on here, and the way that the dye reacts with the soda ash and the fabric, sometimes you'll get some speckles. So if you don't mind the speckles, you don't have to do this. If you do mind the speckles, then this is something that you'll want to do. I also turn the shirt upside or face down so that the face of it is against my surface area, so that once it's tied up, that's the smoothest surface. Because everybody always sees, everybody wants this to be a good looking shirt. So you gotta have the front of it looking good. The back, you can hide stuff, like everybody wants the back to look good too. You want an overall good looking shirt. But if there's errors on the front, people see the front of you when they talk to you, so you don't want those errors on the front. You would rather them be on the back. But obviously we don't want errors, but if you do, it's just better to kind of hide them somewhere. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll start here in the middle, get a nice little pinch, run this across. So you don't have to set pleats like this. By setting pleats, you get a little bit more detail in your spiral. It's a little bit easier to work with. It does take a little bit longer. Alright, so spread this. We're going to set it right here. Pull up just a little bit. Make sure you're right in the middle. And start twisting. So you can just twist straight up if you want, but if you want some like clean pleats in here, as you're twisting, kind of start to separate them along the natural wrinkles as you see those, and then in the middle. So if you want to get cleaner detail in the center, you can take this, push down, start separating. That way you get a little bit more detail into these spirals. You get a cleaner look. Your color's gonna split better once you start adding the dye to it. And if your pleats are all different sizes, you're gonna have unevenness in the surface area when you're putting dye on it. Well, that's if you're doing the back side. So I'm actually going to be dyeing the other side, but this helps with both sides. This gets it gets the pleats all the way down in, so that you can have color go all the way through. You're not having any blank spots. Not having any spots that are oversaturated because the color didn't move correct. So just continuously separate your pleats as you're twisting. Sometimes they'll kind of run together, so you got to go through and fix them a little bit. Around the collar, gets a little tall sometimes. So that collar's a little stiff, so you got to pull your folds around. And around the sleeves will get tall because it's far out from there. You can add pleats in between if you like. Think about here. Fix this. All right. That's about as far out as it'll twist. Take the rest, curl it around here. You want to keep this tight, somewhat tight, but not too tight. Alright, so you're going to hold that still right there. See how it looks from up top. So now we're going to take the tape here. Get this back open. And we'll go back to tighten this just a tad bit. So I think the spot that I want to start the tape is going to be right here on the edge. So come over here, set that right there. You're going to pull and tighten as you wrap this around. You want to make sure to kind of keep it tight. Don't mess up your spiral too much. You can even tighten it a little bit if you're able to. But if this isn't tight enough, then the tape's not going to hold it. So you got to have somewhat of a tight spiral for it to tape. If you don't want to do a tight spiral, then you'll probably want to use the rubber bands. So when you pull this off, and there's the spiral that we got. So now I'm going to move this. I usually use this board. It's a drawing board because this surface area is so slick that I can't really spiral stuff. It doesn't hold its shape, so I need to put something that's got a little bit of a grip to it. It makes it a little bit easier to do these spirals. Alright, so now we got that there. I use this tub here to do all my dyes. As you see, there's a whole bunch of dye that's already in there that's fallen off. It almost seems like waste, but as long as this does not get wet, the dye is still good. So what I do is I have a container of all that dye. I got it sitting around somewhere over here. When I first started doing this, I just kind of let it build up and build up, and I knew I was going to use it eventually, but I use it now. So this is all of that put in and kind of mixed up. This works really well for just random color splits. If you want some like darker colors, maybe some browns or something in there, but they also split out to possible yellows or reds or oranges or even some blues, then this works really well. And what I do like to do is actually mix some of this with a little bit of extra color. So whatever color I want to split from it, I like to mix with this, and it splits from that. So a lot of times I'll actually put turquoise in this and make something with that, but I'll go over that later. Alright, now that we got all situated, I'm going to throw my shirt down right here. Grab my dyes. And when working with powders, it's best to wear a mask, some kind of dust mask that works well. I'm just going to wear a cloth mask right now, one that I made, tie-dyed myself. This was a dyed mandala that I ended up drawing over the top of, cutting out, and then making the mask myself. And you don't really want to be breathing in these dyes or the chemicals. They're not toxic, but they're irritant, and you can start to get some lung issues and stuff if you're breathing it in. You don't want that, so be sure to wear a mask of some sort while you're doing this. Alright, so I didn't really decide what colors I was going to use. So let's see what I got mixed here. Let's see. I got purple. I got much cerulean in here. Fuchsia. Okay, that's what we'll do. Alright, so we're gonna do this kind of like how my shirt is, but different colors. So we're gonna split it down the center and then make the same colors on each side, but we're gonna do a little bit of a blend with these colors. Gonna check the shirts. Okay. Alright, so my black is the rest of the black that I had mixed with some of the stuff from my container. So it's not the blackest black, but it works. It's black. Blackish. It'll be kind of gray, probably, but we'll see. As long as I put enough of it on here, it does alright. I just don't want it to eat up some of the other colors. Alright. There we go. Got my two sides split. Alright, so I'm going to do some cerulean blue, some turquoise, some true purple, and then some fuchsia. Alright, so this cerulean blue here. I don't want to put too much because I got to make sure I got room for the other colors, and I don't really have a whole lot of this mixed here. So you want to kind of go thinner towards the center, thicker towards the outside. Okay, so there's the one side. Switch over to the other. I'm ambidextrous, so I actually do this with both hands. It just kind of depends on the angle that I'm at. I do like to, like after I lay my first color down, typically I like to angle it so that my next colors end up pouring into it, so that they don't spill out too much. There we go. I'll go over a little bit more on that side. Alright, so there's my jet black, cerulean blue. Actually, I wouldn't call that jet black. That's my blackish color. It was jet black. That color came from Jacquard. It was Jacquard jet black, but I ran low. I used a whole bunch of it. I like to use black in a lot of stuff. Okay, so I have turquoise. No, now I'm doing turquoise. It's one of my favorite colors to use. I typically put it in everything. And the only downside of the turquoise, like it sticks, it stays in there, but it doesn't stick as well as some of the other colors. So one of the thoughts is it takes heat to set, but with hot water irrigation you're using heat, so it does set, but the color that you see while it's being set and the color after it's washed, two different colors. It would be so nice if turquoise stayed that color. You can put enough in there so that it does set pretty well, but there is a point in putting too much dye if you're trying to get some kind of detail into it. So if you add too much, you'll end up losing detail. It'll just be color. If you like color, that's totally fine. Just all depends on the look that you like to go for. But I do like a little bit of difference in my colors so that there's lines and stuff going through there. There's a little bit of texture to it. Kind of as you can see on the, no, actually you can't see that, so. Alright. I should put those colors on backwards. I should have put the turquoise on first and then the cerulean blue, but it'll be okay. So now, well, if I did do that, I'm going to change the color I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to go the other direction. So I like to kind of blend my colors. Since I put the darker color on first, I meant to go turquoise, cerulean blue, purple, and then fuchsia, but since I did darker, I did cerulean first, then I did turquoise. So now I'm going to do some yellow. I'm going to throw some yellow and then some orange and then some fuchsia. Maybe fuchsia. I don't know if I'll throw the fuchsia in there. We'll see. See how much room I got. So what this yellow will end up doing is, some of it will be yellow, but a lot of it mixes with the colors next to it. So I'll get some green next to this turquoise. I really like the blends between the yellow and the turquoise. If you want, you can put green in there. I have bright green from Grateful Dyes as well. It works. I just try not to use very much green because green can be overpowering. When green mixes with blue, it just kind of still stays a greenish color. When it mixes with yellow, it turns the yellow green. So you can, if you use too much green, you can make your shirt green. But if you like green, then go away with all the green. Use all that you want. And just like with liquid dye, the yellow does not dissolve as well. It will probably be one of the last colors to dissolve when I'm adding the hot water to it. So by doing a pattern like this, it does kind of stretch out the time. So if you're trying to do something in under an hour, these more detailed designs can really eat up your time. So if you don't want to do it this long, don't put this many colors on it. Just use a few colors and call it a day. Because you can put a few colors on here really quick. Just by doing this many colors, sometimes it just takes a little bit longer. Alright, so now we got some bright orange here. Lay that on there. Well, it's just a regular old teaspoon that I'm using. If you don't have steady hands to be able to do something like this, you need something smaller. There's smaller spoons that you can use. I'll use this for some of the more detailed designs, but for this just a regular teaspoon works wonders for me. Laying down lines, just one line after the other, switching up my hands and my angles so that it just feels like I'm drawing a straight line here. It's kind of what makes it easiest. This takes a little bit of practice. See me tapping here on the spoon. I do a little tap so that I can control the amount of dye that comes off at once, because you do not want to just dump all of that on there. It's not going to go where you want it to. Alright, I think that's good on the orange here. And the fuchsia. I'm going to lay a bunch of this over this orange, because I want it to blend into the orange. And everything outside of it, I'm just going to leave white. So what I'll do to fill that in is, if you don't put anything there, the color can spill into it. So what I'm going to do is just use some soda ash and dump that in. I put a little too much on right there. Get a little bit off the spoon. There we go. Get this other side done. This I'll end up doing is making 2 spirals within the spiral, which will be the same on both sides. And I am actually right-handed when I write, so I do most of this kind of right-handed, but when it came to sports, I was left side dominant. So I throw with my left hand. I do a bat right-handed though with baseball. But I do play disc golf, and to me, throwing a disc left-handed and swinging a bat right-handed were kind of one and the same movement. So it is carried over. Let's see, do I got any? So I'm gonna do, pour a little soda ash in here. There we go. And I'm filling this. This will just kind of help keep this, help the dye from spilling into it. Although if any dye does spill into it, it kind of sets it, but I think we'll be all right. Might turn pink. It'll be okay. It'll be a blend from black all the way to the pinkish white color. All right, there we go. Get a nice look at that. All right, now we're gonna go start boiling some water. Alright, so we're all set up now. So I've got this tray down here to kind of lift it up off the tub. I got a towel down because that helps once the water starts going in. If you don't have the towel, it kind of runs on the bottom and makes a little muddy mess to it. So by putting this towel on, it lets the dye just run straight through, so you end up getting a cleaner product overall. So what we're going to do here is pump this sprayer up a few times, get some pressure going, and then start it off of it so that you get the water running just a little bit. Okay, so now that we got the water running, I'm going to lift the sprayer up a little bit high. We're going to start up a little high so that it just slowly starts getting into it. If you do it too close, then what ends up happening is the water will start to build up and it'll run together. So you want to start kind of far, kind of slow, let it seep into it just a little bit at a time. You kind of get the feel of it. Get a little bit closer as the dye starts seeping into it just a little. So with my sprayer, I've got this nice little lock that's on it, so I don't actually have to hold the trigger. Just keep giving it a little bit of pressure every once in a while and let that seep in. Alright, so now we got our shirt all rinsed out. Come over here, take the tape off. And slide that off because it's wet. And there we go. Hot water irrigation dye. Less than 1 hour. If you like what you see here, check out my shop on Etsy under Knotz Theory. It's www.etsy.com/shop. Knotz Theory. KNOTZTHEORY. Thank you for watching.